Hello viewer, I'm Father Lokk. Please subscribe and enjoy the programs.
A new home, a fresh start, a chance to rebuild and find peace. KRISSY Benton bounced her baby girl on her hip, her eyes scanning the room with a mix of hope and anxiety. A nervous smile on her face, she tried to mask her worries. The apartment was small, but it was theirs. A fresh start, a new beginning. The air smelled faintly of bleach and old paint, remnants of the previous tenants. But it was an improvement over the stale, cramped motel room she and Kaylee had called home for too long. The motel had been a place of survival, not living. Kaylee gurgled, her tiny hand reaching for a sunbeam that slanted through the dusty window, a small sign of hope. "This is our home now, Kaylee Bug," KRISSY whispered, her voice thick with emotion, a promise to herself and her daughter. The first few days were quiet, peaceful even. A stark contrast to the chaos they had left behind. KRISSY unpacked boxes, the repetitive motions almost meditative, a way to calm her racing thoughts. She sang Kaylee's silly songs as she set up the crib in the small, adjacent room, trying to create a sense of normalcy. The apartment was on the top floor, 2 bedrooms, and surprisingly affordable for the area. It felt like a hidden gem. The landlady, a frail, bird-like woman named Mrs. Henderson, seemed kind if a little eccentric. She had a twinkle in her eye that hinted at stories untold. But KRISSY was used to that. She had encountered all sorts of people in her journey. It was a small price to pay for a fresh start, a chance to build a better life for her and Kaylee. That first week, KRISSY even allowed herself a sliver of hope. She dared to dream of a brighter future. Maybe this was it, a chance for them to finally be okay, a place where they could find stability and happiness. She found a local diner advertising for waitresses and landed an interview for the following week. It was a step towards financial independence. Life was, dare she say it, looking up. For the first time in a long while, KRISSY felt a glimmer of optimism. Then, the nightmares began. They crept into the night like silent invaders, uninvited and relentless. Not for KRISSY, not at first. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Kaylee, normally a sound sleeper, would wake in the night, screaming bloody murder. Her once peaceful slumber shattered by unseen horrors. Her cries were not the typical fussy whimpers of a child waking from a bad dream. They were raw, primal, filled with a terror that no child should ever know. They were piercing, desperate shrieks that sent chills crawling down KRISSY's spine. Then came the scratches, as if the nightmares had found a way to manifest physically. KRISSY would wake in the morning, her body a canvas of thin, red welts. Each mark a silent testimony to the unseen battles fought in the dead of night. Deep, angry marks that looked like the raking claws of some feral animal. They were too precise, too deliberate to be mere accidents. She told herself it was the old building, the rough brick walls, anything but the terrifying truth that was slowly, insidiously creeping into her reality. The truth she dared not speak aloud. The shadows in the apartment seemed to deepen, growing darker and more menacing with each passing night. The air growing heavy and oppressive, as if the very atmosphere was thickening with dread. KRISSY started talking to herself, a nervous habit she developed to fill the unnerving silence that seemed to press in on them. Her voice, a fragile barrier against the encroaching darkness. She told herself it was stress, exhaustion, anything but what her gut was screaming at her. Something was wrong, terribly wrong, the kind of wrong that lurks in the corners of your mind, waiting to pounce. The writing on the wall. Literally. The message appeared on a Tuesday. KRISSY had just finished bathing Kaylee, the baby giggling and splashing in the plastic tub. KRISSY turned her back for a moment to grab a towel, and that's when she saw it. Scrawled across the closet wall, in what looked like orange crayon, were 5 words that made her blood run cold. "Leave before he get you," is what it said. The handwriting was that of a child. It was uneven, but the message was clear. Terror, raw and primal, flooded through her. It was no longer just scratches and nightmares. It was a direct threat. KRISSY snatched Kaylee from the tub, her heart pounding against her ribs like a drum. Someone, or something, was in this apartment with them, and it wanted Kaylee. Edgar Meeks. The name came to KRISSY in a whisper, a faint, almost inaudible sound that sent chills down her spine. She was rocking Kaylee, trying to soothe her back to sleep after another night terror, when she heard it. The room was silent except for the soft creak of the rocking chair. A voice, raspy and low, like dry leaves skittering across pavement. "Edgar," it hissed. "Edgar Meeks wants your baby." Panic seized her, her heart pounding in her chest. KRISSY clutched Kaylee tighter, her mind racing. Was she going crazy? The words echoed in her mind, relentless and haunting. She had to get out, had to get Kaylee to safety. But where? Who would believe her? The fear was overwhelming, but she knew she had to act. The next day, driven by fear and a mother's unwavering instinct, she set out to find answers. She couldn't ignore the feeling that something was terribly wrong. KRISSY sought out Mrs. Henderson, the town's unofficial historian and keeper of secrets. The old woman listened patiently, her roomy eyes filled with a strange knowing. She had seen and heard many things in her long life. When KRISSY finished, Mrs. Henderson simply sighed and said, "Ah, Edgar, restless soul, that one." Her words were heavy with meaning. Mrs. Henderson revealed the apartment's dark history, a tale of sorrow and violence that had left its mark on the very walls. Edgar Meeks, a cruel man who met a violent end within those very walls. His story was one of anger and unresolved pain. His spirit, she explained, remained trapped and tormented, unable to find peace. The weight of his presence was palpable, a lingering darkness that refused to fade. That night, the apartment came alive. Objects flew across the room with impossible force. Kaylee's crib shook violently, her terrified screams echoing in the darkness. The temperature plummeted, and the air grew thick with the smell of damp earth and decay. KRISSY knew then that there was no reasoning with this entity, no negotiating. She grabbed Kaylee, bundled her in a blanket, and fled. They didn't stop running until they reached the street, the harsh glare of the streetlights a beacon of safety in the encroaching darkness. KRISSY never looked back. She never returned for their belongings, for the life they had briefly attempted to build in that cursed place. The experience left an indelible mark, a chilling reminder that some doors are best left unopened, some secrets better left buried. Thanks for joining me for this chilling Father Lokk's horror house tale. Please subscribe and hit the like button for more true stories and haunting tales like these. Always be safe out there, and in the words of Father Lokk, always remember and always know that he love y'all. Bye, family.